So, reverb mistakes you shouldn't make. If I only had a penny for every mistake I've seen people make with reverbs. I'm going to explain it all today. Welcome back to the Thomann Studio and Recording channel. My name is Claudio Passavanti. I'm a keyboard player, a producer, and I run these beautiful studios here in central London called Dr. Mix. On this channel, I explain to you music production, arrangement, mixing. If you're into it, please subscribe to this channel and also hit that bell notification button so that you don't miss out. Let's dive into reverb mistakes. So the first mistake that I see people do is use reverbs as inserts. So what do I mean by that? Look at this. So I have this sound, right? And I want to put some reverb. This is the mistake that people do. Say Valhalla, right? They use this. Now they're using it as mix, right? So here you have the dry and here you got the wet. The problem with this is that if you want to add more reverb, you're going to turn down the level of the dry signal. You see what I mean? So that's not good because you don't want your reverb action to mess up with your balance. And when you use a reverb as an insert, that's exactly what you're doing. So you want more reverb? Yeah, you can get more reverb, but now you got less of the dry signal. So you're going to mess up your balance. So instead, you should use it like this. Remove this one, add an effect channel, like add effects channel to selected track. We're gonna call it MS20 Verb, for example. I also like to use a little accent like that, so that I know that that's an effect. And now I can use this in full mix. Remember to use this in full mix now. And now you have your effect send like that. See? I'm not affecting the amount of dry signal. I'm just deciding how much reverb I'm gonna have. Then, you know, if I can also trim the return from the reverb, and that's another interesting thing that you can do with it. But also, you know, if I decide to automate, I can send to that reverb, and then I will let the tail finish. So it's a much better way and a much more flexible and intelligent way of using reverbs. The next mistake that I see a lot of people make is using too much reverb. Now, reverb is originally designed to replicate reality, right? So if I am singing straight into a microphone and you're using your headphones, now the result is like I am speaking directly into your ear, which is not what happens in reality, right? You wouldn't go to a gig and a singer is shouting straight into your ear canal, right? What happens is that the singer is in front of you, and then the sound that gets to you, it's not only the sound of those vocals, it's also the sound of the room around that vocal, right? So you imitate that with reverb. But if you end up putting too much reverb, now the sound is not believable anymore. So that the brain cannot process it anymore, and the sound ends up just being a big wash. All right. So let me show you how I do it. Right. So for example, this MS20. You know, how much reverb am I going to use? I'm gonna remove the solo and listen to it in context. Right. So how much reverb is too much? I'll show you. Right? Unbelievable, like as in not believable. So I'm gonna start turning it down and then I'll stop the music. Now I can hear the tail. You know what? Let me turn down other reverbs because I just want you to focus on that specific one. So yeah, let's delete those. Okay. Let me loop it as well. Okay, if I stop the music, you can hear the tail of the reverb. Like for example, this one would be a little bit too long. For example, 4 seconds is definitely too long. That's better. But it's still a bit too much, isn't it? Right? So maybe now I can pull it back in a little bit. Just about there. The rule of thumb is if you can barely hear it, then you're probably getting it right. The next mistake is leaving reverbs untreated. What does that mean? You cannot just slam a reverb and expect it to sound good, all right? For example, if you're using reverb, say on drums, right? You may want to put a little bit of ambience around the drum kit, you know, or around your electronic drum kit. And when you do that, a lot of low end will build up. Let me demonstrate. Let's go to a bit where it's the kick drum right there. All right. Let me loop that. All right. So if I just put a reverb straight onto this with an effect send, right? So we'll call it drum verb. Okay, there you go. So you see what happens? There is a lot of rumble and a lot of noise happening. Firstly, let me turn it down a little bit. Okay, so a bit shorter, but look at the EQ visualizer head. Look how much low end there is. This low end will create mud in your mix, right? So how about if we eliminate that? How do we do it? We do it like this. Filter. Maybe steeper curve. See? You don't need all of this. All of this is gonna just mud your kick drum and your bass, and it's gonna have a bad effect on the rest of the mix, all right? But also, listen to it. I mean, this is Valhalla, this is one of my favorite reverbs, but it sounds a bit harsh, doesn't it? There's all of this stop end that, you know, especially on drums, but also on vocals, can be a little bit distracting. Like, for example, when you pronounce the letter S on reverb, that S tends to shine and to last for a long time, and you hear this, you know, going around your mix. So what you really want to do is you want to filter out. Maybe you might want to use like a shelf type of EQ, right? You see how immediately the reverb becomes like more acceptable, it becomes rounder, and it's not confusing those drums. I mean, I'm using a lot of it, granted, but if I listen to the difference between this and this, see how much clearer the drums are, right? So maybe I may want to use a little bit less. Now the drums sound correct, don't they? Okay, so the other mistake, I'm not sure if I want to call it mistake, but yeah, let's call it a mistake, is being lazy with reverbs. A reverb is there to give something to the music, so you may want to make it personal, you know? You just don't want to slap any reverb on your instruments just because you can. So what I tend to do, for example, is, you know, I play a lot with the pre-delay, which gives you a little bit of space between the reverb kicks in. Let me push it up a little bit so that you can hear it better, right? See, there is a little moment before the reverb kicks in. That's called pre-delay. And I usually, you know, tend to use a little bit of it because so the reverb comes with a little bit of delay and it gets out of the way of vocals, right? If you can also time it. Right? This is quite funny, right? Maybe I can just use 100, right? I think this is a little bit more creative. So that's one way that you can do it. But another way is, for example, to use an effect on top of your reverb. For example, I don't know, how about if we use, I don't know, some phaser? Yeah, let's use some phaser modulation. Right, maybe this is a bit too much. Let's use a little bit less feedback. Now, in this case, it's okay to use the effect as an insert, right? Reverb without effect, reverb with effect, right? Maybe not too much. Right, now your reverb is more personal, yeah? And another trick that you can use on reverbs, because especially if you're using more than one, yeah, you just want to make sure that they are not all fighting for the same position in the mix. Let's use Ozone 9 Imager, okay? So I am going to stereoize it and I'm gonna push it up, and then I'm gonna push this one up, all right? So now I'm literally pushing it out of the way, right? So the difference is this versus this, right? So you can actually make a difference between one reverb and the next. But in general, I suggest that you take care of your reverbs because they are magical and they can really make a huge difference in your mix. Just use them wisely and creatively. If you have any questions about reverbs, please feel free to ask them in the comments here below. I will try to answer your questions. Otherwise, I hope you're having a great day, feeling creative and making great music, obviously. See you next time.